Hey, it's Brian. So, little something different this week. Next week, we've got our usual full episode coming out where we talk to our friend Alysa Auriemma about writing and motherhood and her new books and all sorts of fun stuff. But we also talk about Heated Rivalry. Well, Alyssa talks about Heated Rivalry for a long time. And it's so good, and it's such a really fun part of the episode that I wanted to break it out and give it to you guys as a little bonus preview for next week's episode. So this week is all about Heated Rivalry. Tune in next week for our full regular episode. Okay, here's the bonus stuff. Enjoy. So, okay, this is the point of the show where regular listeners know I ask the my guests to talk about the best thing that they've read lately, because good writing is, to be a good writer, you need to consume great media. I know better from our conversations before this to ask you what the best thing you've consumed is. So I'm just going to say the two words and let you go for as long as you want to. Heated Rivalry.
Oh man. No, it's so funny. You were saying that your wife's really into it
Mm-hmm.
too. So I it, every part of what is going on with Heated Rivalry has been one of the greatest surprises in my fandom fangirl life. I am truly stunned by it in a way that is both um like I'm overjoyed by it and I'm also very confused by it, but in a great way.
So,
So
did you read the books before the TV adaptation?
okay, so here's the really fun background thing. So you may know this, but so Rachel Reed, who is the author of the Game Changer series, she wrote she was starting to come up with the first book in the series, which is in Heated Rivalry. It's episode 3. It's the Scott and Kip story. Uh and that's pretty much in the show. Episode 3 is pretty much verbatim most of that book, Game Changer, with a big climactic moment in that story being what happens in episode 5. But you don't know that that's the climactic moment for that group of that story until you get to that book. But so I had read the fan fiction version of that story. So she has said, and I'm going to take her for her word. She has said that she made it into fan fiction because she didn't know that Archive of Our Own, AO3, which is the biggest now fan fiction archive on the internet. And it's really has collected archives from all different places that are now defunct and has put it's fandom preservation, which is really, really important. And she didn't realize you can put original work on AO3. And you cannot promote original work or link original work. Like I'm selling my book, but you can put original work on AO3. So she changed, according to Rachel Reed, she changed the story of Scott and Kip to Captain America fan fiction and put it up on AO3. And when I was getting into Captain America fandom, specifically Steve and Bucky stuff, I read all the big fics. There's so many big like tentpole fan fictions in that fandom. I have friends, really, really good friends. Some of my best friends I've met through that fandom that have written some of the biggest fics in that fandom. And that was a fic that was getting circled. That was a fic that was very popular, and it read like Steve and Bucky fanfic. Bucky was the Kip, and Steve was the Scott. And Scott in the book is blonde and a Chris Evans type. Um, and and Kip kind of looks like Bucky. And his nickname is Skip. His nickname is Kip, right? So it's a whole thing. So it read very much like that. And it takes place in Brooklyn, all these different things. So she says that she reverse fanficked it. I take her I'll take her at her word, but you read Game Changer and it reads like Steve Bucky fan fiction. It does. And that's not, again, that's not an insult.
Mm.
It's I, as someone who reads and has produced Stephen Bucky fan fiction, I love that stuff. So I don't understand this whole thing about like using it reads like fan fiction as a negative, but whatever. So that was back in like 2016 that I read that fic. So I'm like, reading that fic. It's fine. Keep going. So then I find out that she's making that into books and she wrote this whole series. And I went, oh, okay. I'll get to that sometime. I'm not a hockey romance girl. That's a big genre.
Hmm.
And it's just never been my thing. But I know that it's huge. And I know that it is a very marketable genre of romance. And I just thought, you know what? Good for her. That's great. And she's far from the only person to do it. So I was like, all right, just, that's totally fine. So I forgot about it. And then last year I find out that this Canadian company is making Heated Rivalry as a series. And I thought, that's cool. Okay. Um, great. It'll be a cult thing. Like people on Tumblr will find it, get obsessed with it. There'll be GIFs all over the place, and it'll be something that a very niche group of people will love. That's awesome. And I saw a preview and I was like, this is great. Like this is gonna be just um, you know, cheesy and fun. And I'm loving this. So, and I knew that she had based it off of I'm again, I'm not a hockey person, but she based it off of the rivalry between Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. And I know those names. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And then it just, I hadn't watched it yet. They dropped. So then this is like some other thing. HBO Max picked it up.
Hmm.
Like, I'm gonna say 2 weeks before it aired, they secured the rights and we're gonna air it on HBO Max. So again, I'm thinking that's great. It's still gonna be this cult thing, very much like there was this Norwegian show called Scam that came out like 10 years ago that was very cult, and there was this gay relationship on that show, and Tumblr picked it up and ate it up. And I thought, well, good for them. This will be fun. And then it exploded. And I am hearing from all these people, all my friends going, this is an incredible show. You have to watch it. And I thought, well, I have HBO Max. I'll watch it at some point. And I'm seeing clips, and I really didn't watch it. I didn't watch it until episode 4 came out. And my friend Lindsay came over to my house and said, we're going to watch it together, because she had watched, actually, it was the day episode 5 came out. And she said, you have to watch the show. I am going to sit here and we're going to watch episodes 1 through 4. And I said, okay. And she actually has, I'll send it to you. She has a video of me reacting to it. And I just have my hands over my mouth. I'm just, because here's why the show works for me anyway. And I think the leads have said similar things. So everyone's like, why do women love Heated Rivalry? Why, which I'm like, I know why they love Heated Rivalry. It's because, and it's not because they like to watch boys kiss. I mean, some of it is, but it's not so much about these are hot guys that are doing hot, like that are doing hot guy things and are being hot. It's a critique of patriarchy. That's what it is. I mean, there is patriarchy in the show because of the fact that Ilya is closeted in Russia, and there's so many, when they're at the Olympics in Sochi, and Shane goes up to talk to Ilya, and Ilya is basically telling him to go away. And he says later, I can't do this here. I like my dad is in the police, my brother's in the police. I can't do this. Like you cannot be near me at all. So that the real world does trickle in, but it's such a critique of heteronormativity and misogyny and patriarchal norms of masculinity. Um, I think women are well, women. I think everybody is starved for that kind of media. I think that people are so starved for healthy depictions of masculinity because patriarchy hurts women and men. And I think that to have these men be vulnerable and to have these men say, I love you so much, I don't know what to do, and be very vulnerable and cry. And so it's yes, you come into it and being like, whoa, they're having sex. This is crazy. But honestly, the sex isn't anybody that's watched Queer as Folk and anybody that's watched any of the shows on Netflix or anything like that, it's not as explicit as any of the shows that I've seen before. I mean, I was seeing Queer as Folk came out in 2000 and it's got stuff in there that's just as, if not more, explicit than this. Um, but that's a gateway into what ends up ultimately happening, which is a love story and the vulnerability. And so when episode 5 came out, I can't open my phone without seeing just so like Instagram stories and and then straight hockey dudes reacting to it. And it's the coolest thing I've ever seen because they're all into it and they're all rooting for these guys like they're I don't know, uh Dawson and Dawson and Joey, or well, Joey and Tracy really, but like they're rooting for them to be together, and when they get together, and the whole "I'm coming to the cottage," the I think the phrase "I'm coming to the cottage" is representational of I'm not afraid anymore, and I'm going to lean into something that I'm scared to lean into, and I'm not afraid to be with you anymore. That I think is what I'm coming to the cottage really means. It's I'm gonna open myself up to being loved and to love. Um, and that whole scene with Scott bringing Kip out onto the ice and the song "I'll Believe in Anything," and also any show that uses tattoos, all the things she said, is gonna be number one in my book. When that song kicked in, because I don't think people understand, because we're around the same age-ish. When all the things she said came out, it was such a big deal
What's up?
and it was
Yeah.
so controversial. And because I remember hearing that song for the first time and being like, oh, this is a cool, like Russian pop song. And then the bridge kicks in and it's like, I'm feeling for her what she's feeling for me. And when they stop and stare, don't worry me, blah, blah, blah. And you realize, oh, they're singing about each other. And it's not like a weird friendship. It's not friendship. This is about love and forbidden love, right? And I mean the whole thing with tattoo is a little weird because like they were dressed up as schoolgirls and it's not
Still of the 2000 early 2000s in that
very
way.
2000s. And I know that it was a bait, and I know that they weren't actually lesbians, and it's whatever. It was a whole it was a gag to get views. I Whatever. Having that song at that moment with those characters, especially because Ilya is Russian, having those characters together and to hear that song, one of a place where it's just you and me, nobody else, so we can be free. I just I could not compute, Ryan. Like my brain couldn't compute what I was seeing. And I knew it was amazing, but the fact that everybody in the world seems to be obsessed with it is, I think it's a sign that we're just starved for this kind of story. We're just starved for love. And it's not even wholesome. It's not, I mean, some of it's very wholesome, but it's it's intimacy on a really deep level. And I read an article that was talking about how the absence of women makes it why women like it because there's no room for violence against women. And the women in Heated Rivalry are amazing. And they're very good examples of allies. Like, you know, Elena and Maria and Svetlana are just incredible. And Rose as well. Like Rose and Shane's whole breakup, quote unquote, is so funny and relatable. I've had that. I mean, I've not dated any gay guys, but I have had conversations where I've said, I remember meeting he's one of my dear, dear, dear friends. And I remember I found out he was gay because we realized we had previously a crush on the same guy. And I just went, that's incredible. And I just loved that her reaction was, this is hilarious. Like, of course you're gay. Like this. And not only that, but like, I'm still going to be your best friend and I'm going to support you. And Elena telling Kip to go down to the ice to see Scott and to just go. And the parents in this show, the fact that this show, I see so many comments from online from LGBTQ plus people saying that this is healing them. Like this show didn't get me. The whole thing with Scott and Kip, I love them. I know everyone's obsessed with Shane and Ilya, but I love Scott and Kip. I just think that their relationship is so sweet. But the scene between Shane and his mom in episode 6, I was standing in my kitchen, tears are just running down my face. When he said to his mom, I want you to know that I really tried.
Oh, mm.
I like,
Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna have to screenshot this. I'm just because I'm just staring at you. I, I, that feeling, I know people who have said like I tried so hard to be what you wanted me to be and I just couldn't do it. And I'm sorry that I couldn't be what you wanted me to be. And her response being, I'm sorry I made you feel like you couldn't tell me. She doesn't say I'm sorry if. She says I'm sorry I made you feel like you couldn't tell me. And that's why she was upset. And I just was like, and I came out of the kitchen and my husband was in the living room and he knew I was watching the show. And he was like, so how did it go? And I said, the mom said that she was sorry that she felt like she could. And he said that he tried. And he goes, I wish I was recording you right now because I looked like all of those people online that are like, this is it. And I was inconsolable because of the honesty of it. Also, really beneficial that a gay guy directed and wrote this show. It like having a queer showrunner about in a show about queer people. There's an honesty there, and he says all the time. He said like in a lot of his interviews, I wanted to make a show where nobody dies at the end. Like, yes, there is that moment of, oh no, the parents saw and they left. There is that moment, but it gets resolved immediately. And they figure it all out and it ends on a really nice, like they're just driving off into the sunset together. And we get a season 2, thank God. Because I immediately thought, well, there's no way we're getting a season 2. We're just gonna end it. And it's gonna be this thing where they cancel another gay show and it's just going to be a thing that happens. And the fact that it got renewed for season 2 and they're contracted for 3 seasons, and also the the guys on the show are just so good. And they came out of nowhere. And I just think that they deserve everything that's going to come their way. I'd known Francois Arnault from a bunch of other stuff, but I hadn't known any of the other guys. And to see them go on this press tour and just be unapologetically themselves um is just delightful. Um so it is not the most recent thing I've read, but I did read Game Changer and Heated Rivalry before I watched the show. And most of the big moments that are in the show were in the book. So I remember texting my friend Lindsay and saying, after I read the scene where um Ilya's confessing to Shane in Russian, and I knew the second he started saying things in Russian, because in the book, you don't know what he's saying in Russian at first. And then it flips to his perspective, and then you find out that he was saying, "I'm in love with you," you know. And I texted my friend Lindsay, and I said, "You're not ready for if they do this right. This next episode," and it was right after before episode 5 came out. I said, "If they do this right, this episode's gonna break people's brains," and it did. And I knew it. I knew going in, and that was great to know that they did it right. Um, And so I have not read the rest of the series because it's been sold out everywhere. And that's another thing that I could go on for a while about how Harlequin really dropped the ball on producing extra copies and doing book tie-ins and doing the promo that they should have done for it. And to be fair, I don't think they knew that this was going to blow up the way that it did.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, in retrospect, of course it blew up the way that it did.
Right.
You know, it's very Bridgerton-esque,
Right.
right? Bridgerton dropped on Christmas in 2020 and exploded because it was an example of, oh, this is another way to show romance. This is another, like, love stories don't have to be this weird power dynamic patriarchal thing. Um, and it's just delightful. And I love it so much. Um, And I just want Connor Story and Hudson Williams to get everything that they ever want, ever, because they're just sweet. Um, and they're so young and completely untrained for media, and it's so refreshing. Um, and I just love it.
18 minutes. That's actually a lot less than I thought it was going to be. So actually pretty good.
That are just going through every single episode and like the minutia of like the foot touching and like all of that stuff. I feel like if you're listening to this episode, you've watched Heated Rivalry and you understand